All right, so let's continue looking at this Mozart F major sonata. Now that we've asked some pretty important questions about the main theme and transition areas, let's talk through the secondary key area, because while it's less maybe debatable about what's going on, once we keep the structure in mind, it is definitely still a little bit confusing. So we're going to talk through this. One of the ideas that I want to look at here is to sort of just introduce the idea that some of this, remember, is interpretive. There are definitely some elements where people could take different perspectives on the analysis here, and that's okay. There are certain elements, like we were just talking about with the main theme and the transition, where the structure is really well established, and where a composer can clearly usurp that structure by kind of, playing around with it, but that only works because it's so well set in stone that we know what's going to happen. The deeper you get into a sonata, and this is particularly true in the development section, where things are very, very ambiguous and unclear, but the secondary key area can also play a role of sort of introducing some uncertainty into the structure. So it's okay for there to be a little bit of, of difference of opinion about the structure of the secondary key area. So I'm going to present this here and talk you through the way I would interpret it, but I'm also going to acknowledge some of the other perspectives that you could take on this. And this is particularly going to be the case in the last section of the secondary key area. So remember, we're in F major, and we know that this is or F major is the home key. We know that this is the beginning of the secondary key area because it's our first theme in C major, right? So C major, pretty clearly the key here, right? There's not much debate about that, right? Right, very C major-y. And we know that that has to be the secondary key area because it's 5 of F, which is the home key. So this is SKA number 1, starts here in measure 41, and we can see that we've got this lovely melody. Again, Mozart is the king of melodies. Singable, lovely stuff. What does it do here? Right? And we sort of get this nice motion here. Right? Before we right? Right, so just lovely florid little thing. Now, let me write again. It started in measure 41. So let's type here just so that we have it on this page. SKA 1 is measure 41 through question mark. That's what we're sort of discussing now. So oftentimes here in measure 46, 7, 8, 9, people will suggest that they think we're in a new SKA section. But let's look at why. One thing that might point us to thinking that we may be, because look at the harmonic motion here. We've got in 47, we get to a big old 5 chord here, and so that can very much make it feel like, well, sure, this feels like, are we at a half cadence? We said that cadences of any kind are kind of rare in the secondary key area. So if this is a cadence, that seems like it would be kind of important. And then we get this sort of funky 3 against 2 thing. Right? Kind of funky difference thing. That was not my best 3 against 2 playing, but thing here. And so it seems like, yes, we've gone someplace very different. But look at 53 here, for instance. Right? This is the same music that we had here. And in fact, this is the same music, because even though it's got the 3 against 2, right? Even though it's got that little thing, if we just look at the second notes, right? Right? That's the same melody as this. It's more open here. Right? But here, look, it's a 1 chord, 5 chord. So this is the same phrase. So musically, it's elaborated, it's ornamented, we might say. But this is the same music that we had here right at the beginning of SKA 1. So SKA 1 continues. And like I said, we had this sort of half cadence here. So let's see if we get a cadential idea this second time after 53. Let's see what happens here. Does this sound like a cadence? Absolutely. So we have a little cadence here, which is a nice sort of partner to this half cadence here. Even though this is a cadence, because the melodic material continues, we're not going to consider this a new ska section. It's the same melody. It's the same theme being developed. And he has this really nice partnering of a half cadence here in 48 with what kind of cadence here in measure 55 and 56, right? If we look at the chords here, this is 2-6 to 5 to 1. So this is a really, really nice authentic cadence. My spacing here is a little rough. There we go. So this is an authentic cadence here in measure 50 on the downbeat of 58. So we would say that's the ending of ska 1. And again, we can sort of hear that. If we look here, this is 55. Right? 2, 5, 1. So ska 1 is measure 41 through measure 56. Right? And I hope that's fairly clear. So then we would expect ska 2 to start right here. And so if that's going to happen, we had a cadence, but we said that not only do cadences in the ska section help us to see the distinction, but a new and clearly distinct musical idea oftentimes emerges. And I hope you're getting the impression here with this, the way this piece is going in general, Mozart is not afraid of new and different musical ideas. And he gets one of his most distinct here, where we get this awesome rhythmic Mozart groove, right? I mean, this is the kind of thing where you just want to hear, this is Mozart on the, I mean, it's groove time. It's groove time in Mozart land. So we have a very new idea here. So this is ska 2, and that's starting in measure number 56. And again, this is a very, very common thing. Let's put this one over here. Very common thing for the last measure of one idea to be the first measure of a new idea, right? So just keep that in mind. So here we go. We got this awesome new bouncy rhythmic idea. Oops. And very quickly, Mozart, if we look in measure 58 here, is very quickly into C minor. So this ska section, we know C is the home key, but very much like Beethoven, we're now in C minor, and this is sort of, we could view this as, again, a sort of large-scale version of modal mixture. We're not mixing just a single chord, we're mixing this whole section here in C minor. So if we look at this, from measure 58, which is this one right here, we've got C minor. This is all very C minor, right? And we can hear, we're kind of doing a circle of fifths. And it sort of shortens a little bit here. And then where do we get? Right, so if we just sort of take the rhythm away, we're here on 1, dun, 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 da, da. Sorry, 5. Here we go. 1, then to minor, 4. So C, right here, C to F in measure 61, to B flat in measure 62. Where should B flat go? To E flat. Beautiful major 7th chord here. So this circle of fifths, right? C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D, G. And why is G important? Because even though we were doing a circle of fifths, we're still in C, right? So we've circled around. So let me just sort of write circle of fifths. And I'm going to put an exclamation point because, come on, circle of fifths is awesome. So we move around the circle of fifths, and then we arrive at 5 here, and you can see this little measure kind of starts Mozart's elaboration on the cadence. Right, so that's 70, measure 70. And you can hear that, I mean, this whole thing here is just Mozart kind of bopping around. If we look at the notes on the downbeat, look, there's a 5 chord, there's a 5 chord, there's a 5 chord. So this is 67, 68, 69, 70. We're still on 5 here. And I would say this kind of feels, especially given the amount of time Mozart has stayed on this feels like a cadence to me. Really, really, really hanging out on 5 for pretty much measure 66 through 70. And it almost feels like he's stuck, right? And then finally breaks out before kind of taking a right turn randomly. So up to this point, I would say there isn't too much that's debatable because of how distinct this rhythmic section is. I think this makes a very, very natural ska 2. But now we're into some trouble. So we've got this sort of half cadence here. I'm going to analyze ska 2 as going to measure 70 here because I feel like this motion being stuck on 5 for as long as it is structurally significant. But now we get into the part where Mozart is being a little flexible with things. So this is sort of where I'm analyzing the beginning of our ska 3 is in measure 71 here. So measure 71. I think I put the wrong punctuation, but you know what? We're going to survive. So measure 71, we'll fix it, make a colon, which is right here, ska 3. And let's listen to that. So think about why am I suggesting that this is a new section? We can sort of hear that it's got this distinct melodic voice, right? It's a new idea. So we've got this lovely melody again. Very Mozart-y. Some deceptive motion. Repeats it. Right? Now here's where things get a little confusing. Because what happens here? I played the wrong notes. That's what happens there, right? Yeah. I tell you, people. Right? So we're sort of repeating some previous ideas. And not really able to cadence until 86 here. Right? We finally get there. So from measure 71 until measure 85, we've got this new idea, but then he sort of stops and briefly brings back our material from where? From ska 2, right? This is a sort of a hearkening back to ska 2 material. And I know I spelled that wrong. I'm going to fix it when I could see it. Material. This is ska 2 material here that Mozart is reusing, and this is where the interpretive element sort of comes into play because, yes, this is a distinctly new melody, but you can probably hear that it doesn't exactly last for a super long time, right? Our first ska, 41 to 56, I mean, that's a fairly long time. Second ska, 56 to 70, again, that feels really significant. This is a world in of itself. Ska 3 here, we've got this melody, which he repeats twice, and then we get back into this, ska 2 stuff. Right? And that's sort of weird. And then we repeat that idea before in 86, landing on this right? We're back on C, and we're really just, right, driving to the end. Right? Just pushing to the end. So this clearly feels like it's its own unit. So the question is this like SKA 4? What do we make of this? And this is where that interpretive element really comes into play. So my argument would be that since SKA 2 is so distinctive, we really need, and this is so very different from it, we really need to follow the experience of hearing this piece and say, SKA 3 is here, measure 71. Harmonically, it's a little funky. We're on a 5 chord here. And then all of a sudden, start on 4. Right? That's odd. But it's so distinct. It's experientially different. And then Mozart just kind of gives us a smattering. Like this, we sometimes, SKA 3, this may not satisfy too much, but SKA 3 oftentimes plays a dual role. So SKA 3 can be multiple things. Thing number 1 is new theme, right? SKA 3 could be a new theme. It can also be what we sometimes call one more time, which is, hey, remember that awesome rhythmic thing that we had in SKA 2 where we had this cool? Let's do that one more time, right? And that's what we get here where Mozart calls back. But SKA 3 can also be big cadence, right? And that's what we sort of get down here with this clear ending material, where this is obviously Mozart just driving to the end. So my argument would be, while yes, this is different, nothing is happening here. We're just on a big 1 chord. He has this tiny little cadence, right? So you could, if you really wanted to, you could analyze all of this material as part of SKA 2 and say that this is part of SKA 2 because this ending, this tiny little ending here, is going to be SKA 3. I think this melody is a distinct enough theme that it deserves separation, and Mozart is just using sort of a big combination in SKA 3. We've got a little new theme, we've got a one more time, sort of remember that greatest hits kind of moment, and then we've got a big cadence towards the end. But again, I'm very much willing to enter into the record the fact that the SKA section, secondary key area, is less clear, but you want to sort of trust the experiential side of it and consider that there may be an element of this going on. So as you are analyzing these pieces, I would encourage you, don't get necessarily too stuck in what the quote-unquote right answer is, and instead explore your ability to clearly argue your point, right? Tell me how you are interpreting this. That may be frustrating, and we've done so much musically that is really oriented around, this is how you spell this chord, or this is a progression that fits the techniques we're working on, or this is the way the voice leading should go according to the techniques. But music is more than that, and music is at its heart interpretive. And so I would encourage you to explore your interpretive side with this and just make sure that you can argue your point, right? Because there are not hard and fast rules to how everything goes. As we saw in the first part, in the main theme and the transition, we can use the structure of the piece to help us see through what's going on, to clarify confusing elements. But we can also use the fact that music is interpretive to give our analysis a little bit of a backbone and argue our point for how we are experiencing this. But those are just some ideas that I think are really, really cool to look at here. Trust that a composer oftentimes wants you to hear a different section. This section is so distinct, this SKA 2. That's clearly a new idea. And always be on the lookout in SKA 3 for one or more of these 3 elements. New theme, one more time, or the big cadence to be present, and for SKA 3 to kind of feel like a bit of a mishmash in what's going on. So that's a really, really detailed look at a lot of elements in this Mozart sonata, and let's talk on in class about the way we're going to interpret the main theme and the transition.